my name is Terry Provost. The first poem I'm reading is called Homo Sum. And by way of preface, I'm just going to say that in the early 90s, I took a leave of absence from my job doing R&D in magnetic resonance imaging with the intention of writing a book about the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. As I worked on it, I realized that whereas I agreed with a lot of Nietzsche's ideas, I nonetheless had very little idea to find sufficient evidence to prove what he was saying. And that started me investigating the basics of how language works and how we mean anything at all, which led me from one direction to the history of words and etymology, and from another to the practice of poetry. And ultimately, I came up with my own philosophy, which I called post-logicalism, which explicitly rejects the most fundamental notions of logic, specifically that contradiction refutes anything, which accounts for the origin of this poem I wrote in the mid-90s. It isn't easy being a woman in a man's body. Try telling people you're a woman when you're a man, and they give you the strangest looks. It's like when I tell people I'm Chinese or black. They take one sidelong glance at me and make up their rapaciously narrow minds once and for all that I most definitely am not either. So here I am, an HIV positive, transsexual, lesbian, black, Chinese, Jewish, space alien, incest victim with a heroin addiction. And just because of the way I look, no one believes me. The neo-fascist lookists of this world want evidence. They want proof. They want to go pawing around my crotch, and just because of the enormous thing dangling between my legs, insist that I cannot possibly be either a woman or a lesbian. When will their idolatrous, lookist, clock speed deprived central processing units ever learn? Don't I have an inalienable right to be a woman if I want to be? I mean, fully half of my ancestors are women. Fully half of my chromosomes are women's chromosomes. Fully half of my somatic proteins and all of my mitochondrial DNA are of female origin. And don't I have a right of self-naming, of self-determination? And besides, when I was on the mothership and they were reprogramming my spiritual essence for noxious atmospheric conditions, I distinctly remember telling them I wanted to be an HIV-positive, transsexual, lesbian, black, Chinese, Jewish, space alien, incest victim with a heroin addiction. Isn't it possible to transcend all these labels? To be omni-diseased, omni-gendered, omnisexual, omni-racial, omni-ethnic, omni-theistic, and omni-addicted? Homo sum et humani nihil ami alienum puto. I am human, and of humanity nothing is alien to me. Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes. Do I even need to add that I am small and contain nothing? That of the worthy I am the least worthy? That if I inflate myself and overrate myself with one tongue, I will disparage and deflate myself with many others? Whoever degrades another degrades me. And there is no term of derision or degradation I will shun. They are all in my family. Call someone a nigger, and know that I too am a nigger, and a nigger lover. call anyone a cunt, and know that I am too am a cunt, and a cunt lover. Queer, dyke, chink, kike, and I am each and of each a lover. And will you push me to my contradiction? Will you call me a bigot? Let's just say that if the bigots who run the world are letting HIV positive, transsexual, lesbian, black, Chinese, Jewish, space alien, incest victims with heroin addictions in their club these days, I guess that makes me one of them too. This poem was generated from my reading of the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein and from chance observations in the newspaper. For example, a front page headline noted that a new order of insects had just been discovered, which is major news since an order is one of the really big classifications in old style taxonomy. Actually, it's worth noting that there's a crisis in contemporary taxonomy, which is the classification scheme of living things. For example, there's something like 30 different competing definitions of species. Stephen Jay Gould noted that there are two major schemes of meta-taxonomy. It all gets back to problems of categorization and definition, which are quite common and even to be expected in post-logical world. So, reification. A day without Wittgenstein is like a day without disappearing chairs, without weaving cloth at an empty loom, with a dog fails to talk to himself, a day where it neither rains nor does not. How hot the taxing pursuit of exactitude. A few millions upon billions of electron volts exuding the threat of electrocution, the guillotine sweat of essence from some Manhattan Project nuclear pile gone critical beneath Chicago. One day, a new order of insects shows up on the front page, as yet unnamed, as yet unbegging, the unquestioned of its unfiled family, genus, and phylum, as yet both a coelacanth and not. Before there were alphabets, there were no spelling errors. Sure, your pictograph of a woolly mammoth might have resembled an Erymanthian boar, but the terrifying, gory, Byzantine abomination of orthography was as yet a Buchstab in some Phoenician father's eye. Phonetic Phoenicians everywhere, and ere the iridescent wing, a golf course gone to green in Phoenix has made the snowbirds sing. When plumbing the unknown, the lyrics of poetic analgesic for bumps on your noggin, contusions acquired where confusing desires ride toboggans near cobbled walls where language ends. On a day without Wittgenstein, a dangerous virus, not quite living, seeks life's essence, and not quite understanding, speaks what it does not quite know. A petroglyph a stone's throw away from a glass-shattered house, putting the sigh in science as you cast bricks from the roof of your mouth. Sometime around the new millennium, I competed in some poetry slams, and it occurred to me that it was often attitude rather than content that dominated the judging of poetry slams. And so it occurred to me to do a send-up of attitude-driven poetry. I had in mind the song Ultravox by U2, which is a song I pretty much like because of its pulsing rhythms, but the extreme repetition seems ludicrous in terms of its lyrical quality. So here's the poem, Rhetorical Pediatrics. And it starts with a quote from U2. Baby, baby, baby. Baby, baby, baby. Baby, 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 light my way. Baby, I can't begin to tell you how insanely much I love you, baby. I love you like the ultimate 4x4. Some cliff-climbing piece of Detroit V8 muscle machine kind of thing that could scale the Matterhorn in cruise control. Towing a goddamn 747 behind it like it was a paper plane. You're just like that. But without the catalytic converter. Baby, you're like the ultimate calzone. Some crisp-crusted mozzarella stuffed hunk of scorching oven monkey tongue deli bus basted in 5 alarm dragon flame tomato sauce, hot enough to make my mouth spontaneously combust. Baby, I love you like Lamaze. From the minute I see you, I start hyperventilating harder than a phone stalker on an ether binge, and my pelvic muscles start contracting in rhythmic spasms so strong I may just give birth. Baby, I love you like a mythological Greek river of forgetfulness, a Lethean passage into the afterlife, because when you're near I feel newly braced from that river. Can't remember anything or anyone now. I'm washed up on the other shore of you. Baby, you're like a high-end supercomputer with more gigahertz than the Pentagon, more disk space than Motown, more RAM than a Shepherd, more cash than the Federal Reserve. Totally WYSIWYG. Baby, not the way a world banker loves some Bantustan's bagman, some sadistic CC Seagoing psycho, but like a French existentialist loves fast food and slow women, but really loves the opposite. Baby, I love you the way a charged particle loves a magnetic storm, some foreign-born invader thrashing through the atmosphere in the turbulent swarm glow of boreal solar winds, cosmic kayakers churning in the dance of a whitewater sky. You're my annihilation radiation, baby. I love you like a bodybuilder loves a pose-off, like a fight promoter loves trash talk. Baby, 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 I love you like some soot-caked, dust-drenched, air-dropped mountain wildfire fighter loves a cloudburst. Nature's effortless answer to a catastrophe with no human solution. A liquid prayer come true, unifying the land, the sky, the forest and the flame, man and woman in a single rain, like tears of joy. eroding clean channels on thankful skin, soothed and cooled, a smile within a desperate and often aching life, a soft surcease from this world of pain. Around 1995, I became interested in the political writings of Noam Chomsky, which meant in the early days of George W. Bush's administration, I was going crazy over the hypocrisy of imperial pronouncements well before the attacks of 9/11, 2001. Of course, one of Chomsky's main assertions is that the United States is the world's leading terrorist state. In fact, he documents in terms of the definition of terrorism provided in the U.S. Army manuals, and does so very convincingly. The following poem was written in June of 2001, so well before the September attacks. It's one of few poems in English that mentioned Osama bin Laden by name before those attacks. It turned out to be oddly prophetic. At the very end, there's an even deeper prophecy. Again, this is called The Terrorist. Stop me before I become a terrorist, because I am tired of being on the losing side, having my rights denied, my opinions and ideas ignored, suppressed, censored, and lied about. Tired of seeing my children mentally tortured, brainwashed, propagandized with sanitized fairy tale, mythologized history, and amplified material girl, materialist misery, advertising a commodified, perfumed, anorexic, narcissistic sexuality. I am O.J. Blade angry over my sisters being raped, beaten, and mutilated by men who are themselves self-detonating with rage at a system that leaves them powerless and without freedom. I am napalm-skinned irate at the brutality of this here police state, shoving plungers up my brother's asses, assassinating duly elected foreign leaders, spraying chemical weapons on non-violent protesters, and seeding the earth with a roundup of genetically engineered time bombs, while jailing millions guilty of no crime but pursuing their own happiness. I am Rottweiler bite, Columbine trenchcoat angry, Dahmer freezer, McVeigh truck, Osama bin Laden, Nairobi embassy angry at a system of criminal justice designed to protect the criminals with the biggest stock portfolios. I'm signing up with the terrorists, and I'm thinking big! None of your sold out pissant Camp David PLO. None of your second fiddle suicide bomb Hamas. None of your pansy ass tree hugging property crime only ELF. No, when I go over to the terrorists, it's gonna be major league. IBM, you know, the people who automated the extermination of European Jews for Hitler? Or Union Carbide, they poisoned tens of thousands with cyanide in Bhopal in India. IMF, now there's some serious terror cred, financing mass murdering sweatshop dictator heads of state from Suharto's Indonesia to Chile's Pinochet. Or what about the multinational pharmaceuticals corporations holding tens of millions hostage to their intellectual property monopolies on AIDS drugs? But what I dream of is being number one. The New York Yankees of terrorism, the sole remaining superpower of terrorism. I want to work for the good old USA and be all that I can be. Talking 10,000 multi-megaton ICBM mass extinction vaporization terror. Talking dumping enough plutonium in groundwater to poison every last person on Earth terror. Talking we got more prison cells than you got young black men terror. School curriculum, this must be brainwashing because it says here George Washington invented democracy and George Bush got a brain terror. Talking fuck with our puppet state oil monopolies in the Mideast. Mess with the Mobil, Exxon, BP shell game we run in the Persian Gulf. And you better have one hell of a big condom because we're shoving a cruise missile up your ass terror. Now you may accuse me of hypocrisy for joining the organization that has driven me to this extreme. But the thing is, with just a few of their savagely beautiful weapons, I can do more damage. Unimaginably more damage from the inside. And I want to be all the terrorist I can be.